Welcome to yet another exciting edition of The Importance of Continuity. We don't have a specific opening style for this kind of video just yet, but we are working on it. So, for this week's edition of this highly favored theme is Order 66. I'm guessing you already knew what it was about because it says so in the video description, but it's mandatory that we say it in the video too for reasons. My name is Gibson Shamar from Hikati Media, and I will be the one talking you through the video and explaining what exactly our line of thought is. So bear with us, everyone. Let's look at the meaning of continuity. Continuity is the consistency of the characteristics of people, plot, objects, and places seen by the audience over some period of time. That's the meaning I got online. So, what is continuity in this context? Continuity would be the maintenance of the established lore as it was introduced and the overall feeling that elicits from the audience, keeping in mind the implications and firmly established things that were put in place behind the lore. Why is continuity important? Simple. It's what keeps the story interesting. It's what makes the story the story. If you're just going to have random things happen and pop up or events that contradict what has been stated to have happened, then it just becomes content with nothing interesting to it apart from seeing your favorite characters on screen. The project may still end up being good if it's considered as a standalone thing, but if it is part of a larger narrative like a prequel or a sequel, then continuity is one of the most important things that you must preserve, whether you disagree with what was established or not. That's a big challenge when it comes to prequels. That's why I hate prequels. They never align perfectly and always play loose with some things, then end up disagreeing with them. A lot of playing loose happens with the Star Wars franchise, and that's exactly what we are going to talk about with Order 66 as the main focus. So, what is Order 66? Let's get the answer from what's in the movies, or at least from what we can gather from the movies. In the movies, Order 66 seems to be a directive given by the Chancellor of the Republic, who was secretly the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, to the clones of the Grand Army of the Republic to kill every Jedi they see. I haven't read anything regarding Order 66 in the old expanded universe, which was never canon in the first place anyway. I haven't read any of the canon books or comics that talk about what Order 66 is, but I did watch Star Wars The Clone Wars all the way to the end. In that show, Order 66 is some sort of code that's programmed into a microchip which is implanted in every single clone in the Grand Army of the Republic. Once the clone hears the code, the chip takes over and makes them hostile towards Jedi. Good. Now that we have Order 66 defined, I think we can move on to the main part of the video. Whether Order 66 came as a shock to you or not depended on whether you watched the original trilogy before going to the prequels or not. I, for one, watched Star Wars in chronological order, so seeing Order 66 was one of the biggest blows to my childhood. I had come from watching The Phantom Menace, The Battle of Geonosis, Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars, and was watching Revenge of the Sith. Seeing the clones turn like that and killing the heroes broke me beyond measure. I had never wanted anyone dead as badly as I wanted Palpatine dead. Those who were coming from watching the original trilogy knew that it was coming. The shock they went through was probably at how it ended up happening. For me, it was both how it happened and the fact that it happened. But then, when I watched Attack of the Clones fully in 2008, I realized that the Kaminoans explained a few things about the clones. Lama Su explained that the clones were genetically modified not just to age faster, but to be less independent than the original host and to follow any order without question. That got me thinking. Could it be that that's what serves as the explanation as to why the clones executed their Jedi? I mean, the army was commissioned under mysterious circumstances. A seemingly rogue Jedi ordered the creation of the army, and the DNA donor was recruited by Count Dooku. Wouldn't that mean that the clones were brought up to fight under the Jedi and instructed to kill them once the time came? I don't know about you, but that makes perfect sense to me. But somehow that wasn't enough for people to piece together. The Clone Wars introduced the idea of microchips taking over and making the clones do that because it's impossible for the clones to turn on the Jedi like that after fighting so many battles together. The Clone Wars was a show that was hailed as the savior of the prequel trilogy because without that show, the prequel trilogy did not make sense. I finished the original trilogy as a 9-year-old in 2005, and I understood and pieced together everything. I didn't need expanded universe comics, novels, or anything extra to help me understand it. I understood that the clones were bred to kill the Jedi once the time came, and that was the sentiment that was carried by a lot of others. The feeling of dread, of betrayal. You get the message that the clones were brainwashed and didn't know any better because that's just what they were supposed to be. Droids with flesh. It was really sad, really tragic. And then at some point, the Empire discards them and brings in stormtroopers. Again, I didn't need a show, a movie, comics, or novels to help me understand that the clones had served their purpose and were decommissioned because it's better to recruit people to the army rather than genetically modify them. Of course, I only saw Stormtroopers in 2008 when I was 12 when I watched the original trilogy for the first time. I put two and two together immediately. They weren't clones, they were called Stormtroopers. So at some point, they got rid of the clones. Simple math. That feeling of dread, the anger, it's something that the Jedi never got to have revenge for. The choice that the clones made, that was important. That was a staple thing with Order 66. Choice, responsibility, fidelity to the Republic, not the Jedi. Now, here's where things get tricky. The introduction of microchips removes the agency of the clones completely and makes their actions not their own. See, I mentioned that the clones were droids with flesh, right? The microchips make this a lot more literal than it should have been and goes against what the movies established about the clones. The build-up in Attack of the Clones was fine and should have been expanded on like that. That's one of the things that the expanded universe really worked on well. The expanded universe brought in more weight to Order 66 and firmly established that the clones were in full control of their actions and always knew that they would one day be ordered to wipe out the Jedi. You see, when Palpatine calls Cody and tells him to kill Obi-Wan, he doesn't just call him and go like, execute Order 66. He actually says,
Commander Cody, the time has come. Execute Order 66.
You tell me, if this was always meant to be a microchip thing, if it was all part of the grand design, why didn't Cody cut the line? Why did Palpatine have the time to go like, the time has come? Doesn't that show familiarity between the two, or at least a prior discussion about what would have to happen? I mean, we know that Darth Tyrannus, aka Count Dooku, is the one who recruited Jango Fett for cloning, meaning that at some point the clones were shown who their true masters were. This four-word sentence destroys the need to add in microchips. The prequel trilogy is a very complex trilogy. Out of the three trilogies, it is the most complex and layered. There are so many layers to what each character says and does, and so many intricacies in the plot that if you remove one element, the entire saga unravels differently. See this shot right here? If this shot didn't hit the ship, Anakin would never have been found, and the whole story would not have gone the way it did. One of the many complexities it has is in its storytelling, is the tale of brainwashing. People accuse the Jedi Order of brainwashing children into their lifestyle. That's fine and all, but why do you think it's impossible to train genetically engineered clones to kill their generals after a certain period of time? We have child soldiers in many parts of the world whose initiation is completed by having them kill their parents and siblings. People that they grew up with, people who raised them. No microchips involved, just simple re-education. And for some reason, people think that it's impossible for the clones to kill their respective Jedi. That's the defense people have when making a point defending microchips. It's not impossible. It's actually a lot more sensible than microchips. The clones are children. They're no older than 10-year-olds by the time of Revenge of the Sith. They're children bred for war and fed growth hormones. That's just the way it is. Order 66, as portrayed by the animation, destroys that. Not only does it go against what's actually a more powerful storyline, but it doesn't even have anything satisfactory going on for it on its own. The chips were there, never mentioned in the movies, and according to the Bad Batch Season 1, the effects of the chips can be overcome if the clone feels like it. The Clone Wars Season 7 also showed Rex resisting its effects, so why not just keep the thing about it being what they were trained for the whole time? There it is. That disparity is what ruins the continuity. The feeling is no longer the same. You don't have the same hate for Palpatine and the clones. You may hate Palpatine more, but you feel sorry for the clones, and then you don't even get to see their story play out until the end. It just naturally progresses until there are no more. So why add that detail? What is the point in the overall lore? George Lucas crafted something beautiful with Order 66, something complex, and apparently a concept that's foreign to the majority of Star Wars fans. Yes, the clones were humanized in the Clone Wars, but that's still something you can't use to defend such a massive change. Humanizing the clones worked so that we could get attached to them and root for them, so that when they finally did what they were made for, we'd feel sadness, despair, and anger. Why did they do that? They were brothers in arms. That's what we got in Revenge of the Sith. That's not what we feel now after seeing the Clone Wars, and that's a bad thing. You know, since the main enforcers of the Empire are stormtroopers, basically a military unit commonly associated with the Nazis, you could tie the explanation of their horrific acts to the way captured Nazis did in interrogations. Their excuse was always, we were following orders. One guy, Adolf Eichmann, I think that's how you say his name, even said that he just did as he was told. Not out of hatred for Jews. To him, it was no different than working an office job. That's what a military force is. That's what the clones were designed to be, according to the movies, before the animated show changed that. Quoting this really cool guy whose comment I saw in an Instagram comment section discussing this very topic, which I happened to come across as I was writing the script for this video, he said, pre 2008 Order 66 is when George Lucas's political commentary was peak. As much as I loved Clone Wars as a kid, its changes with the chip are a part of the depoliticizing of Star Wars into the hyper-consumerist franchise it is. Not that it wasn't one before, but I think the message was really lost in the sauce from that point on. We traded such a poignant and tragic story of the Republic's collapse in exchange for a well-made military procedural more concerned with broader and less transgressive moral lessons curated for children that's watchable for adults, rather than carrying a moral lesson relevant to the adult world that children should be able to understand, similar to how George has argued in interviews. End quote. And you know what a nice parallel to this was? The Republic basically gave Palpatine his power willingly. The clones of the army having the choice to follow through with Order 66 was a nice mirror to that too. The clones chose to obey and execute their friends and brothers in arms, giving rise to the Empire. That was truly the best tragedy of the prequels. None of it was forced. It was all just choices. The same way Anakin fell to the dark side. It was all his choice. His decisions led to his downfall. See, this is where it would be appropriate to say, it's like poetry. It rhymes. But no, this is not like poetry anymore. It doesn't rhyme. Sadly, there's no way to undo this. There's no way to improve on the concept. It's been firmly established now and is being expanded on every day. They even wanted to make an Obi-Wan movie addressing the microchips thing, as he would team up with Cody, who was sad about what he had to do. Well, you could still make it like that and say that Cody regretted his decision and wanted to atone for it, then meets Obi-Wan. See? I made a choice to obey the order and shoot you down. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now I see that it wasn't right, and that you Jedi weren't the poison of the Republic. This new empire is far worse than what we were told the Jedi were. Simple math. No need for microchips. Yeah, but the microchips don't take away their consciousness. It just implants the instructions and makes them believe that what they are doing is right. Okay, so why and how was Rex resisting when he was drawing his guns on Ahsoka? Well, if the clones were just told to do it, if they were just indoctrinated, the Jedi would have sensed it. No, they wouldn't. It's said multiple times throughout the prequels that the dark side has blinded the Jedi. It's explicitly said exactly like that. So, no, the Jedi would not have been able to sense it, just like they couldn't sense Palpatine being a Sith Lord.
What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith?
No, that's not possible. The Jedi would be aware of it.
The dark side of the Force has clouded their vision, my friend.
The dark side clouds everything. Impossible to see. The future is. Blind we are with creation of this clone army we could not see.
I think it is time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished.
Preserving continuity in such a massive IP is an indication of true talent, and the longer it goes, the harder it becomes, especially when all you do is try to fill in the blanks and add in your own little things that you think would be a neat idea which go against what has either been established before or implied. The Clone Wars showed us epic battles and showed us more of the other Jedi in the Order, but it also added continuity problems. Rebels was self-contained, but still managed to add in some problems. The Bad Batch was even more contained, and yes, it still added some. The Mandalorian, well, not yet. Boba Fett's Luke Skywalker episode, yeah. Ahsoka, well, let me not even get started on that. Anyway, the content is still enjoyable, and at least major things are mostly kept intact when it comes to Order 66. The clones still kill their Jedi at least, and they remain loyal to the Empire. The main problem comes with the implications that adding microchips brings. Feel free to agree or disagree in the comments below. Check out our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and the rest of our channel. We've got a lot of other stuff that we talk about that you may agree with. Have a good day.
Please tell your master, Cypher Diaz, that his order will be met on time.
Master Cypher Diaz was killed almost 10 years ago.
But I'm sure he would have been proud of the army we've built for him. A clone army.
When my master first contacted you about the army, did he say who it was for?
This army is for the Republic.
You mentioned growth acceleration.
Oh yes, it's essential. Otherwise a mature clone would take a lifetime to grow. Now we can do it in half the time. They are totally obedient, taking any order without question. We modified their genetic structure to make them less independent than the original host.
You must know Master Cypher Diaz.
Master who?
Cypher Diaz. Is he not the Jedi who hired you for this job?
Never heard of him. I was recruited by a man called Tyrannus on one of the moons of Bogdan.
The Force is with us, Master Sidious.
Welcome home, Lord Tyrannus.